Hello and welcome to anyone who dares listen to South Forest talk about win conditions and the one he's proposing for his game at the moment, and even the problems that the current one in mind proposes. We all know when it comes to card games, collectible card games, that in the vast majority of cases, let's go with Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Hearthstone, three examples, and the vast majority of them go down this line, where you're essentially going 1-to-1, and you have health, and you're in combat, and the goal is to take the other person down to 0 health, and you win. And though in Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone, I don't know much about Yu-Gi-Oh. There are Yu-Gi-Oh has one, Exodia. They all have a win condition in the cards itself, and essentially you have to work quite hard to reach the conditions of the cards, and then you just win the game. In terms of just actually rather creative ideas on how to win the game. There's the Exodia one, where you need to have all 5 pieces of Exodia in your hand to win. I do not know any of the Magic the Gathering ones off the top of my head. And there's Hearthstone, which there have been a few. There's Mecha Cthulhu, where you literally cannot have any cards in your hand, play, or deck when it dies and you win. Or, the quest line, the priest quest line, where you had to cast pretty much a card of almost every mana, and then you get a card that costs 10 mana, and you just win the game. Now, there's many examples of it. That's actually all kind of really cool. But and when it comes to a game where there's no combat, you don't have health to whittle down. Even though Pokemon, in a sense, doesn't really have the idea of, it has combat, but you whittle down the Pokemon and knock out till you reach 6 prize points, but you're still taking out the Pokemon. So it's really cool that there's kind of a second hand win condition, instead of just you have to beat 6 Pokemon. And then there's Inscription, which I'm going to have to base my my win condition on. And though that has combat as well, but it has the interesting method that there is no reaching 0. In a sense, there's only outdoing your opponent, and it's a really good idea. I'm not sure if it's been done before, but I'm glad I have played it and experienced it to see it, because I don't know what would have come to mind, and it really does show to allow, in a sense, to kind of really outdo the opponent versus just beating him up, in a sense. And considering my game is based around the making potions essentially, and then doing cool stuff, which leads to the idea that it is 2 contestants in front of a judge, and you have to impress the judge far better than you are. And of course, but it's difficult to kind of have that 10 out of 10. You don't have a live. You can't really approach it from that live studio audience kind of thing. It's or actual judges and whatnot, and you can't really make a grand spectacle with the cards. Not without an eye, which would be really cool, but that's not the point. So. The thing is, with that concept in mind, there leans to be the struggle of, what if both players are doing about evenly well? They're keeping up with themselves, and you're stuck at 0 versus anything else in a sense, because the idea is to have like right now 5 more points than the opponent, whether it's 0 to 5, 10 to 15, or 22 to 27. Your opponent has 22 points. You have to beat 27 to win. But if it's like say like a mirror match, or just evenly two decks that are evenly powerful in that sense, there needs to be a way to avoid the game never ending. And that was for a while a struggle of how to, how do I go around this if I want to keep kind of like the same concept. And then there's also the problem that, what if there's no such thing as a slow deck, because a fast deck will get those points fast, or like a bursty deck will just lay it on quick. So kind of like an aggro deck versus a control deck, right? The whole point of the control versus aggro kind of dynamic is the control to pretty much let the aggro deck fizzle out and then just win through sheer attrition. And control can do that when it comes to like life totals, because you got this amount of life and you got to prevent it from happening. And when it comes to the whole tipping the scales thing, it's very easy for the fast deck to just go boom almost immediately, while the control deck is still trying to set up to get the win. So in sense that, and even in an inscription, you can draw the one power card and then you just instantly win. And that's fun when you're playing against a computer, but with another person, that's not fun. And B, you don't really get to play the game. That there's no good. So the original concept that I've had for tipping the scales, having 5 more points than the opponent, I can't really say works here, and probably won't, and will probably have to be changed. But of course, for now, that's going to be the case, in a sense that I determine the power levels of what's out there in terms of the decks. So the idea is going to have to be, when it comes to doing it another way, and not really another way, but kind of like I want to say like a bottleneck. So the aggro deck can still win if they're really good, but not like immediately. And so there could potentially be a goal to reach. Like, let's say, this is just an example, not what I would apply, but give an example. And then it's funny because it's going to wind up being like the combat idea, because you now have a goal to reach. Let's say the goal is to reach 10 points, right? When you hit the 10-point threshold, are you 10 points above? Like, let's say you completely manage to shut out the enemy, or do it that fast. I want to say that fast. Then you win. It's kind of like the mercy killing, right? Mercy rule. If you got 10 more points than your opponent, it's like whatever. In a sense, instead of 5, right? You reach 10. Are you 10 points above your opponent? No. Then the game keeps going. And then let's say at 25 or like 20, are you 7 points above your opponent? If not, game keeps going. And at that point, when you hit that threshold, like let's say you pass 10, right? Are you 10 points above your opponent? No. Then until you hit 20, if you don't go past 10 points above your opponent, then you do the check. And when you hit 20, are you 7 points above your opponent? If no, you keep going. If you manage to hit that 7 instead, then you win. So if you hit 20, if your opponent's at 16, you're going to need, let's see here, 23 points to win. So you need to get 3 more points to win. And then that's the rule till you hit 30. 30, are you 5 points ahead of your opponent? So your opponent's 26, you hit 30, you need 1 more point right then. And, it keeps shrinking till it's probably 2 points above the opponent. And so this can give the slower decks a chance to actually build up what they're trying to do. And the idea in the entire idea across all the decks that are out there is to go for snowballing. Most of the decks I'm trying to build in terms of gameplay style is trying to snowball and get out of hand, and mostly faster than the opponent. While a potential aggro deck would of course try to get that win now versus anything else. And so with a system like that, it allows the aggro to still be aggro and win, but allowing the control decks to kind of keep up a little bit, just pumping a little bit of points as they go and get to where the position where they are to win. And then the struggle is you have to probably make the occasional sacrifice of maybe not getting a perfect recipe just to get those alchemizes in and get a weaker start than your ideal start. And I kind of really like approaching it that angle, because there's definitely a lot of ways where how the game works that it has great potential to hit that point. Because there's with cards, there's no what it says goes, so you get that extra effect, and it really allows for flexibility, because the cards can when it comes to control have ways to every aspect of the game affect that, while the aggro decks is just doing everything now. And so that allows for quite the variety in terms of how the game is going to go, without ruining the prospect that the gameplay style will be available there. I think that's all I have for the topic, and if you've stayed here this long, subscribe, comment, give feedback on the idea how to go, and if you're interested, definitely subscribe so you can keep up with my thoughts on the game and potential what the changes are, and heck, probably patch notes in terms of changing cards and changing aspects of the game, so it can all be you can be kept up to date. Anyways, thank you for watching, and hope I see you again. Adios.